enjoy the second part of my conversation with the brilliant Basil Abia. If you haven't listened or watched the first part, please check it out. It's on the same platform. See, when we talk about all these things, for me, a primary tool that will help us to at least begin to dissect and solve some of these problems is education.
Yeah, in fact, it's the most important tool.
It's the most important tool. Yeah, that's true.
The most important tool. Yeah.
Education is the tool. And see, for me, I went to a public primary school, secondary school, university. Okay. I don't know if you did the same, but in my generation, everything we did in the generation was public. Okay.
And the standards were very good then.
I would say,
yeah,
I've been in this country for over 13 years. Yes, I've done one or two courses here and there, but I didn't need to go to school in this country to do my job. I came here and in a few months, I got a job to work in the financial sector of this country.
That's incredible.
Okay? And it's
based on the education you got from
based on Nigeria. Okay. Of course, I worked for an international, one of the biggest international bank in the world. That's where I worked in Nigeria. Then Citigroup. Okay, so
they had a very good presence in Nigeria.
Yes. But I went to school in Nigeria totally. Okay, and I don't know if people of a generation can say the same thing I can say, that you went to a public school system and you got the best education. I don't know. What do you think?
I can't say that for my generation. Unfortunately, my generation is actually the one that has been victimized by the incessant strikes and the unfortunate.
We had that in my generation.
Yeah,
I mean, I lost a whole year in my time.
Sorry about
okay, 1990 to 1994, or is it 1992? Whatever. I lost a whole year between my year 3 and year 4. Okay, but then we finished, and I still got a good education.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, see, for me, I would say this. I know many of my listeners will not be happy with me, but I think religion has done one of the worst things in Nigeria and maybe Africa. Okay, because see, the kind of things we need to be studying to grow and develop our country and our continent, most of us do not do that.
Yes. Yeah, sure.
Science, philosophy.
Really? Yes.
Okay. Science, philosophy are the one of the two areas that we need to get into. See, those two areas are the ones that task our thinking to ask ourselves, is what I'm doing the right thing to do? Is that the right way to do things? And we hardly do anything in that space. Now, I have a lot of friends who study science, okay, science in quotes, but they would not talk about evolution.
Because of religion.
Yeah. See, as a young kid, age of 17 or 18, I argued evolution with my professor. I was in year three. Year three, 18 or 19, yeah. I argued evolution with my professor in school. And then I was very religious, okay?
Yeah.
And the man did a good job of not shutting me down.
That is very important. We don't have that in Nigerian
He did a fantastic job of not shutting me down. He engaged me and he allowed me to debate him on that subject. In fact,
that's actually what changed my life, to be honest.
In fact, he after the class, he took me to his office to continue that debate.
The debate. Fantastic. That's how students get to change their life.
See, yes, it didn't change me that day or the next year, but
it took a while.
See, this debate was over 30 years ago. Okay, it's about 30 years ago. Okay, but
yes, sir.
I remember it and I talk about it all the time. Okay, because it was something very big in my life. Okay, today I have friends who, okay, they're not really friends, maybe acquaintances and classmates who even have PhDs in science, and they can't talk about evolution. You see, what can the country do when you can't talk about the things we need to talk about? Today, we are in a global pandemic. I haven't seen Nigerian scientists come up with articles, papers by Nigerian scientists. Those are issues.
And societies do not progress without this sort of iteration in knowledge systems, without contributions to knowledge spaces. Like the last example you just made, the failure of Nigerian scientists living in Nigeria to not contribute to the entire research field with regards to the pandemic is an indictment on our society.
Exactly.
And it's largely due to the fact that pedagogically, we have snuffed out the ability to have people hold on to their own ideas and exploit against other ideas and be given the freedom to not be shut down and all that. I mean, I had the same experience. I remember going into my first year. I was very privileged to attend private education. You know, I attained private education right from crèche level up to university level. And this was actually an American professor, the same professor who I was a research assistant for. The life-changing moment was I thinking that the data that he was providing regarding the dire situation in Nigeria was wrong. I had this perception that a lot of these data were crafted by Western supremacists.
Okay.
You know, then getting to university, a lot of these ideas got a wind of me. But he didn't shut me down. He allowed me to express myself, helped me even with further information. And 1 year after, I was in his class, and the way I waded through frameworks, the tools I used to analyze a lot of these numbers, they were not shaped by beer parlor conversations or beer parlor propaganda. No, they were steeped in heavily interrogated knowledge systems. The ability to understand perspectives from, say, a left-wing perspective, ability to understand from a center-right perspective, from a right-wing perspective, and still hold my own views on my own. You know, that is a skill that a lot of people do not have, and that's why it's very hard to have very effective debate, civil debate, or civil discourse in our spaces. It's almost always like when we talk, you want to fight, you want to be at each other's neck. And you notice that especially in platforms like Clubhouse, where there's a lot of animosity when it comes to discourse, rather than the understanding that I should hear out his perspective, I should hear out her perspective, even if I don't agree. So that changed my life, and unfortunately, that's not the case for a lot of Nigerians. They did not have access to that. They went through university systems where they were taught to rotely memorize, what I refer to as rote memorization, be like robots and just regurgitate whatever the professor told you without questioning, without the freedom to debate. And as you said, philosophy gives you that ability. Philosophy gives you the skill to do that. The science basically helps you with the methods to keep trying out an idea and seeing all the falsities of these ideas. It's actually, science is actually a corrective method. The more you try, the more you correct, the more you improve. These two particular arms of knowledge, we haven't, as a society, we haven't armed a lot of young Nigerians with it. That's why we are where we are today.
That's it. See, yes, the West have done a lot of injustice to Africa. Okay, but for me, the real reason why we're where we are is our lack of curiosity.
Yes.
Okay, as a people, we lack curiosity. Okay, see, here because of the light pollution, you can't see the stars. I tell my daughters that as a child, even as an adult in Nigeria, if you step out at night, you can see all the stars. You can see the whole Milky Way galaxy. See, I ask myself the question: we have been seeing the stars all our lives, yet as a people, we never ask ourselves the question, what are these? See, for me to finally learn about the Milky Way galaxy from books written by astronomers from the West was the big indictment of our lack of curiosity. Because we see these things every day. Look at us. Lions are in Africa. I learned about the lions from listening to the videos of what's his name? David Attenborough. Yeah. Why do we have to wait for a Westerner to come to Africa and start doing all these things for Africans to understand those things? It's all about our lack of curiosity. Yes, we see those things, we just take them as normal. We never ask ourselves any question. I mean, so for me, it's a big problem. Another subject that we need to study in our country and in the continent, history.
Yes.
Now I hear that in Nigerian schools, they don't teach history anymore. Do you know anything about that?
Well, as a policy, that has been rectified. It's now being introduced back into
good.
The curriculum. The problem is the execution. So I know this for a fact because I used to teach government. I taught government in 2017 in Katsina State for 6 months. and there wasn't history in the curriculum. The last that I checked, a lot of these schools don't even have the teachers to come and teach them history. But there are forms of history that are being taught in primary schools and junior secondary schools, but it's in a new course called civics.
Okay.
Or Nigerian civic education.
Okay.
Basically, so it's a combination of religious education, social responsibility, social studies.
Okay.
Together with bits of
yes, civics is good. It's fantastic, but
very good.
It's very different from history.
Yes,
and it should be very different from history.
Yeah, completely agree. So I think there's a lot of politicization even within the because the Ministry of Education, they have a separate body that their own task is basically reviewing the curriculum every 5 to 10 years.
Okay.
But obviously, with history becoming a very contentious issue, there was a politicization of the entirety of that course. Until date, there's still a lot of debate, even by experts who I've spoken to, who are, privy to those spaces. There's a lot of contention, heavy contentions. Even if you're introducing history, what bits of history should you allow and what bits you shouldn't allow?
Why should we start? Why should we start to say what we should allow? See, for me, it's about, did this happen or not? Let's talk about it. Yes. Let's debate it.
Yes, completely agree. But Nigeria, again, because of how we have evolved as a society, we snuff out spaces or chances to actually debate. We just want to impose, and we're also very scared that certain information can make certain people kick against the supposed regime security that we have. For instance, it's going to be very difficult for you to have the national curriculum body in the Federal Ministry of Education to talk about infusing certain aspects of the Civil War history into the history curriculum, because for a lot of reasons, the federal government of Nigeria, to date, still want to keep things as they are. So history in Nigeria's perspective is very political. We need to understand this.
Well,
in the universities, I think a new policy that was introduced by the NUC around 2015. I remember because I was about to. I was making mention of the NUC. They had this new, because NUC have their reviews every 5 years. They just finished the last ones for 2020. But for 2015, when they were reviewing the curriculum, they introduced a new, basically very similar to the American system, where you have a general education course, which is a free elective, but a compulsory free elective. Everybody has to take it before graduating.
Okay.
It's mostly enforced upon undergraduates in their first year. So when they're doing other introductory courses, they have to take that general ed. And in Nigeria's case, they introduced it as history of the Nigerian peoples. Very extensive. I came across the document when I was still in school, and I think it's very accessible. I think we can Google it. The curriculum is quite expansive, and it doesn't include some of those things I made mention of. For instance, key events that happened during the Biafra War is not included. But expansively, from a curricular perspective, that's the best document you can get from a Nigerian perspective. I would have to talk to, and this is only for publicly owned universities. I don't know about privately owned universities and what they went through, but I have to talk to certain people who went through these public schools to find out. But largely, I would say that for the debate or for the question, the universities have it better in terms of history education. I don't know how effective it is, but for you to be able to graduate, you need that compulsory free elective, which is basically a history of the Nigerian peoples. For secondary schools, it's almost like execution isn't really that robust. So some secondary schools have it, some don't have it. For instance, the secondary school that I went to, it was not a compulsory course, but people could access history as a course. That wasn't the case for some other privately owned secondary schools, not to talk of publicly owned secondary schools. So it's a big part. It's a big part, and that's why this information has now been enabled. So people now think that
now
history isn't taught in Nigerian schools.
Now you your question about Nigerian 101.
Yes.
See, how can we talk about Nigerian 101 when
we don't know
we don't know our own history? And maybe I went to this school, you went to that school, and we have different curriculum in history.
Yes.
Then we get to this forum to debate our history, and the knowledge I have is different from yours. You see, it seems this agenda, for whatever I mean, is there to actually separate us more. Yeah. Instead of us to debate the value and the of one subject, we now be debating on what is real and what is not real.
Completely agree, sir.
You see, this is something that look at America. For me, the real issue in America right now is because of the history that they taught their kids at school. You know, they don't teach them the same history.
Yes.
That's why when these guys get older and they meet other people from different regions of America, and they start arguing about this, that was
it's a clash.
Hello.
There's a clash.
Exactly. The clash is based on the decision of people who said they should not teach this in school. You see, no matter what happened, it has happened in the past. The only way for us to deal with it is to know what happened. We debate it and we decide what to do. If we stop the next generation of debating these things, whenever they eventually found out the clash which you have been trying to avoid will still rise up.
Which would most likely be the case in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Because of these conflicting information.
Exactly.
Knowledge asymmetry. You're right, sir.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Nigeria healthcare. I see a lot of young Nigerians adopting so many different things from the West, especially from America. And I see this happening a lot in healthcare. And for me, I am opposed to this. Okay, healthcare insurance. See, if there's something that Nigeria should not adopt from America, is the healthcare system.
Yeah, the privatized.
For me today, if I was in America, by now I should be on the streets because I've had serious health issues for 10 years.
But the NHS has been very effective.
The NHS, see, NHS is not perfect.
Yes.
Okay, it's not perfect. As I'm talking to you today, as I'm talking to you right now, I'm disabled. See, if you are looking at me, I'm using only this hand because I cannot use my other hand. Okay, but I'm okay. If I was in America, I would have sold everything I have, and most likely I'll be on the streets.
It's just grateful to know that at least the NHS doesn't allow that. I know very well how the healthcare system in the US has caused quite a lot of people to go into bankruptcy, one of the highest rates. Actually, just to add some Nigerian context, apart from the United States, no one pays for healthcare out of the pocket than Nigerians.
Exactly.
So we're already in a terrible state when it comes to public healthcare. But adopting more Americanized forms of public healthcare would just destroy us, because already
it will.
A lot of the healthcare that we access, we have to pay it outside of the pocket. There's no arrangement with the government to, socialize some of these costs in that sense. So we don't have that conceptualization. The UK has with the NHS. The NHS is basically a socialized form of medicine.
Every other major country in the world has some form of socialized medicine,
except
apart from United States of America.
Yeah.
Every other major country in the world except America. So there are so many different solutions that Nigeria can look at to copy and adapt it to the Nigerian situation. But America is not and should not be the one we look at. Yes, the American one will give entrepreneurs in the health space the maximum leverage. That's why they're going for it, because it will make them millionaires faster. But for me, for us right now, we should look at providing healthcare to the most people.
Yeah.
At the cheapest rates.
At the cheapest rate possible, with the cost spread out as wide as possible, taken by as much people to side. Completely. Today, in the research briefing we had, because we have daily research briefings with the diverse teams that I work with, we're talking about the energy subsidy issue. In Nigeria's context, basically, energy subsidy issue would be a combination of fuel subsidy and the fact that a lot of the electricity we consume is heavily subsidized. So yeah, these are the two forms of energy subsidy that we undergo. Now, what that happens is that because of these energy subsidies, there's poor or there's a misallocation of capital that isn't going into infrastructural development, but rather going into cartels that give us access to these products at very low quality rates. And there's no incentive for further investments to improve this quality. That's why even with our heavily subsidized electricity, electricity production is very poor, just under 5,000 megawatts per day. And we need at least 150,000 megawatts per day to become the country of our dreams. And how do you further, investments in that regard? Sometimes you have to structure it in such a way that what we are paying for is cost reflective. Basically, in research or in the energy space, we refer to that as cost reflective tariffs. So the removal of these energy subsidies will mean that Nigerians will have to now start paying cost reflective electricity tariffs, as well as cost reflective fuel costs for our PMS, for our kerosene, for our diesel. What that doesn't say is that it's not going to go straight into the market. What we could do is to cushion the effects of removing these subsidies. Why not reallocate them to places that are needed most with more impact on people's lives? For instance, healthcare. So those amounts that we're paying, I think we're roughly spending nothing less than 2.1 trillion naira every year on both of these subsidies that both of these utilities that were subsidized. We can centralize these amounts into healthcare, into agricultural production, into key infrastructure that can enable transportation without the use of cars or too much taxis, but rather inter and intra-city rail, which is very cheap and accessible. So in that people don't actually feel the force of the subsidy removal. And one of the conversations we had was like, imagine a situation where we are putting a lot of these investments that we are putting for subsidies in a elaborate universal healthcare system, very similar to the NHS, where the government covers the bulk of the cost, ensures that the medical workers are well paid, well catered for, have the best working conditions, access the drugs for us, and we just pay a piecemeal. By virtue of the fact that we are Nigerians, and we have our ID card or our NIN number, Nigeria identity number, we have access to this healthcare at any time.
Exactly.
It saves a lot of lives. It makes our society healthier. And we all know what happens when a society is healthier. The society is more productive.
Yeah.
So the counter effect is that in 3 years, when we have removed subsidy, we have actually reallocated the capital to where it is actually getting back in terms of productivity back to the system. So the government actually doesn't lose any amount whatsoever.
See,
they remove subsidy, people are pushing off. That is if we do the work, real hard work of 3 years, getting the infrastructure ready, and then get people who are healthier, people who are like eating better, eating 2 meals, 3 meals a day, unlike the 1 meals they have, because nowadays a lot of Nigerians are doing the 1-0-0 combination for 0-1. You remember the Abacha time? A lot of Nigerians. We are back to that period now, unfortunately. So it's all about in economics we call them the public goods dilemma. Which public goods should be actual public goods, and which public goods should no longer be public goods but should be marketed as a product. This is a debate that will take quite a lot of time, but there's a lot of thinking in some spaces in Nigeria amongst young Nigerian researchers as to what the decision would be in that sense. But I strongly believe
for
that
me,
yes,
for me, this is important. Right now, our society is young, right?
In 20 years, 75%.
See,
young.
In 20 years, if we don't do anything to build our healthcare capacity, okay, in 20 years, we will have a massive number of people in their 50s who will need healthcare. And if we don't build the capacity now we're jollophing that we have a young population. In 20 years, the reverse to be chaos. That's the issue. Okay.
Chaos. I don't even want to imagine that. Some people are saying it would be a new form of Somalia. Some are saying it would be exactly like the Ethiopians in the late 90s.
Okay.
I hope that isn't the case. Both are in the case.
Well, see, we can hope. We can hope,
but it doesn't really.
If we don't do the work, hoping will not save us.
Yeah, it's a futile exercise.
Okay. If we don't do the work, hoping will not save us.
Completely.
Yeah. Let's talk jobs. Okay. Let's talk jobs.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I don't know what's happening. Okay. I don't know. See, I will tell you. I'm clueless when jobs in Nigeria are concerned. What's going on?
It's first and foremost, we have a productivity problem in Nigeria. I think that's a fundamental problem when you look at it from every angle. We're not producing enough. Even as it is, even with all the problems in Nigeria, we actually have a healthy population of consumers, people who consume quite a lot, to eat, to clothe, to have access to the internet, to basically connect with the global world. And you see that by the robust size of some of the industries that we have. We have a very robust financial technology industry. We have a very robust financial industry, actually, one of the best actually on the continent when it comes to transaction, ease of transaction and the rest of that. We have a very robust telecommunications industry, one of the most connected to the internet. I think roughly over 150 million Nigerians are now connected to the internet. So we have a population that even amidst the widespread poverty, there's some level of consumption that they can do. But we don't produce enough to meet that supply. And when you don't produce enough to meet that supply, it basically means that you're not creating economic activities that can create the jobs needed to sustain the teeming youthful population. And the confusion for a lot of us young Nigerians is that the macroeconomic managers in the country, the public officials are clueless as to how to execute the mechanisms that can allow for the jobs to be created. We keep hearing the rhetoric every single time we listen to the elected officials that we need to create jobs, jobs, jobs. But again, it all boils down to state intervention. And we all know that state intervention isn't sustainable. State intervention in the sense of setting up new departments, new commissions, new offices, government offices, with the sense that these new government offices will provide jobs. But the jobs that they provide are minuscule. Look at the intervention now from the aviation sector with the creation of Nigeria Airways, or the bringing back of Nigeria Airways. The Minister of Aviation is clueless to think that in 2 years, even at the way our infrastructure is not even structured, we will be able to, the Nigeria Airways will be able to create 70,000 jobs, which is not even the amount of jobs that federal government currently has in terms of civil service jobs. I think we do roughly do about 30,000 civil servants, federal civil servants. So there's a lot of cluelessness. I wouldn't want to say ignorance, but cluelessness as to the right decisions to make to create jobs. We still have this very 1970s, 1980s mentality that state interventions can create the jobs. But that's not the case. What can actually create these jobs is to understand that when you make economies secular, you make these economies interdependent on each other. So diverse sectors are interdependent on each other. The people are interdependent on these sectors. They know that they depend on these sectors to work, and they also know that because of the monies they're going to get from working for these sectors, they are going to spend more to make these sectors keep moving secular. So that's the definition of a secular economy. And a lot of our public officials are clueless as to this particular mechanism.
Sorry. See,
so that is the case right now.
I'll ask you again.
Sure.
What are the ages of these people who are in the position?
Again, largely people between their 60s and their 70s.
Exactly.
Yeah.
See? So did see in the last 10, 20 years, the world of work has totally changed. Completely changed. So if you put people who do not understand this is what you get. See, jobs have totally changed. Yes, there's some that's still the way they are 20 years ago, but there are many jobs that are based on the internet, which I will tell you, I'm sure people who are 60 and above in Nigeria do not understand the internet. I'm sure they don't even use it.
Yeah, I can assure you.
See, I'm below 50, but I tell you, the things that my teenage daughters do on the internet, I don't really understand them very much, even though I'm a scientist. Okay?
Yeah.
And I do a lot of work on the internet. Even then, I still struggle.
Yeah, I understand completely. Your theory is not even a theory. I think it's now a law. It's a law that a lot of our leadership class are very old and cannot conceptualize a lot of these new trends. Right now, a large population of Nigerians, young Nigerians, are moving remote. In fact, the number one activity I do, apart from the physical activity I do here, the number one activity that actually brings me more money is the research I do remotely. And all I need to do is basically communicate, again, via Zoom, use Slack, and sometimes use Asana. Asana is like a work management software that tracks your workflow and the rest of that. There's also a few database softwares. That's all. Just these softwares and good internet connection, and I can actually work for a group of researchers who are based in Peru and Ecuador, which is the case with Southern Voice. Most of them are based in Peru and Ecuador, some in Colombia as well. And the connection is very seamless. The workflow that I do for them is is quite seamless. That's also the case for some work that I do for other organizations as well. And there's a lot of young Nigerians like me who are doing exactly these same things. But what do you say when you come to a policy room? Let's imagine this is a policy room right now. And we're working with policymakers as to how to extend certain public goods so that we can create more of these remote jobs so that a lot of people can, rather than fill the streets with more volumes that cause traffic. For instance, in Lagos, we have people working at home. They won't even understand it, even if they wanted to. It's just completely out of their depths because these are 70-year-olds, octogenarians in their 80s who are completely clueless. So one of the reasons why I agree with your point about us having to have quite a lot more younger Nigerians in government is because of things like this. Generations move and go. It's very dynamic, and we should have leadership for every single generation.
Yeah.
In the case, we haven't had that for long. We just have the class of 1966 still dominating affairs, still choosing who leads us in all the structures. And that's the problem. But just to end with this question as an answer, I think that right now Nigeria is currently in a jobs crisis. And if we don't sort it out, we're going to be in big problem. Probably wake up one morning, God forbid, and the news you'll be hearing is that unemployed youths are taking axes, taking cutlasses, and fed up and attacking people. And
these are things we need to avoid, and that's part.
These are instances that we need to avoid, but these instances can happen.
Yeah.
We saw a sign just after the protest last year. Remember when people started looting and entering people's shops and destroying shops? The next time something similar happens, it's not going to be looting. It's actually going to be outright murders. So anybody that looks rich, anybody with a car,
exactly. So
they're going to
these are the things we need to avoid, and the only way for us to avoid them is to talk about
jobs
and create jobs. So social media.
Powerful.
See,
I'm actually currently taking a break from it. Actually,
okay, good. That's very good. I go on social media because I'm here in the UK and I want to work with Africans, and the only way I can connect with them is to go on
social media. You're right.
Now, for me, especially in the last 18 months, I've been very disappointed by the rhetorics from Africans on social media. And what it shows me is that we do not have a clue of what is going on in the world. And this is the question I've been asking. I ask this all the time. I ask people, especially those ones that talk a lot on forum. I ask them, okay, give me the 12 books you have read in the last 18 months. I mean, we're talking about history, and they are very loud to tell me all the stories, and I know that those stories are fueled, published on social media, and many of them do not have a strong background to stand on. See, what I'm going to is that we don't read. We don't have the culture of reading, and social media has
contributed to that.
Has become our science textbooks, has become our history textbooks. Okay, people who are steeped in social media, especially Facebook, read all those posts and these videos they watch on social media, and they think those things equate to reading a sound book on history or science. What have you found? I mean,
so my thinking is that first and foremost, as a medium, This is still relatively a new medium. I think it's roughly 20 years old. As human beings, we're still trying to find out how to use it to the best of our ability. Where it is very impactful towards us. I don't know if you've heard about this, but we're currently in the Web3 section of social media, the social media lifecycle. Basically, Web3 is where the metaverse is going to be built upon. That's the bulk of it, and that actually changes a lot of how we live our lives. There's mixed reality in the sense that we can now no longer have to view information from a 2D perspective, but actually from a 3D perspective, and intermingle with virtual worlds seamlessly. That's hoping the infrastructure is provided in that regard. But for the adverse effects of social media, generally from an African perspective, it has been very destructive in the sense that it's eroding a lot of our social traits as human beings. We don't sit down like this to talk. It's virtual, of course, but like physically, we don't have these conversations where we sit 2 hours underneath a palm tree, for instance, or even just in our sitting rooms, conversing, learning diverse perspectives, building consensus with like-minded folks, or even folks who are not actually like-minded. These are very important tools that we used to use as human beings growing up to develop, but we are no longer developing these traits because social media is eroding, especially in Africa. Social media is also augmenting a lot of depravitives, like a depravity, for instance, is the capitalist forms of consumerism, where people are obsessed with luxury acquisitions more than anything. And that can push people to do the extremes. That can also augment mental health crisis. I'm sure you know, especially in the West, a lot of young teenagers and young adults are going through serious mental health problems. And the science actually is that social media is helping to catalyze and compound that problem. So just like we always say with one of the most important old wisdoms, with everything should come moderation. My own advice would be that we should have moderations, and forms of these moderations could be in social media fasts or breaks, like the one that I'm currently taking. I felt like I took in quite a lot of information, and again, this information never leaves us. So I don't know why we feel so enslaved to it. We can take
to consume.
Yeah, you can take a 1 month break and just, like, for instance, what I'm currently doing is I'm reading The Economist, the Physical, all the weekly. I'm trying to finish up all the weekly. This was from last 2 weeks. There's one from last week that I just read, and then I actually have 2 books with me right now. Let me just print them out. I'm actively reading, because I'm rereading it actually. Arrow of God by Chinua Achebe.
Okay.
I just finished Things Fall Apart, which is like the 3rd time now I'm reading it. I love it. And then I've been reading, this is halfway, just halfway through. I've been reading In the Palace of Flowers by a Nigerian in the UK, Victoria Prinsloo. It's historical fiction. In fact, I'm restricting my readings to fiction.
Okay.
Because a lot of these.
See, for me, see, I've read a lot of fiction when I was younger. For me now, I hardly read fiction. I read non-fiction.
I barely read fiction, by the way. I just started because I felt that I was lacking in imaginative skills. And one of the advice
I have see half of my 1/2 of this shelf next to me.
It's just books.
No, the shelf is books all the way, but 2/5 are fiction. Okay.
And fiction that you read.
I've read them years ago, but I keep those that I enjoyed so much, you know.
Again, so that you can look back.
I want my daughters to read them, but they don't seem to be interested.
I mean, they'll catch up. I think nowadays most of the books are on the phones, and I have quite a few books on my phone.
See, it bothers me that we don't read. Okay, it bothers me so much that we don't read.
Societal problems.
As a problem, as a society, we don't read. Okay, and again, I would say, if Africa wants to develop, we need to have a big community of readers, a big community of writers, a big community of people who think critically. Without this, we will continue being subjected as a society of consumers and complainers.
The two C's, the two problematic C's.
See, consumers of what? See, Africans, we complain about what the West does. See, again, I will say this. Yes, I agree that those things are true.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, I agree those things are true, but we can't continue complaining about them without doing anything constructive to change it.
Completely agree, sir.
And anything we do constructively to change it is not, we don't do it to the West. We do it for ourselves, to ourselves. See, if we want our continent to change, then we as a people need to change. We as a people need to change. I mean, I say this to people and they say, no, colonial mentality. Okay, look at, see? And
I mean, that's just the truth. As
and
people,
I asked them the question, how many books have you read this year? And
so silence.
See, only about one or two people can mention 2 or 3 books they've read this year. But the majority of the shouters have not read any book.
The complainers.
Yet they want everybody to adopt their ideas that come from where? From them. Say, this is the issue. So let's wrap this up.
Yeah, absolutely.
See, one of the things I've discovered about the West is about civil society. I mean, in the last 6-7 years, I've worked with several civil society organizations. Okay, some as a client and some as a volunteer. I've learned how the system of these countries work, and it's something we as Africans need to adopt them. And there are so many opportunities for us to do that. I mean, look at all the things we talk about today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Civil society organizations can intervene.
Yeah. Civil society organizations can intervene in the criminal justice system.
Problem.
Civil society organizations can intervene in education in the various localities we have.
In history, education as well. I mean,
that's what
I had conversations.
Exactly.
I had conversations about setting up something similar to that. We still haven't completed these conversations, of course.
And civil society organizations now, when they're working, they can employ a lot of people.
Yeah. So it's a multi-pronged approach to a lot of the problems we face in society.
Exactly. So
solving problems while creating jobs.
Exactly. And that's what this country is fantastic at doing. You see?
Quite agree with you.
You are there to solve a problem, and you are creating jobs and educating people who work for you. See, when I was in Nigeria, I used to look at NGOs as not in a good light. Okay, I was uneducated about them. Okay, but my involvement with many in the last few years, I've learned a lot about what they do and the wonderful contribution they do. They provide as a third leg of the society in this place. So when it comes to you youths trying to create a space in the political system in Nigeria, building civil society organizations would help you when it comes to when you talked about providing collaborative services that can come from a civil society organization that will work across party lines. You understand that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So those things are possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're possible. Yeah.
So that's my last take. If you have any
I completely agree with you. So, we don't have. In fact, there's what we call shrinking civic space. That's a problem very peculiar to Nigeria right now. And the last 6 years under the President Muhammadu Buhari administration, we've had a shrinking of the civic space. A lot of civil society organizations are closing out or keeping quiet because they're scared of being picked up by the DSS.
Wow.
All that being suppressed. So it's a big problem. And this is actually when we need more voices within the civic spaces, but we don't have it. But I quite agree with you that a very enlarged, a very motivated, and a very invested civil society sector in Nigeria would sort a lot of problems.
Yeah,
completely agree.
Yeah. Wow, Basil, it has been very, 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 very nice to speak to you.
No, the privilege is mine.
I will tell you, I didn't expect this kind of engagement with you. I didn't know what to expect, but
yeah, I know.
I didn't expect
like
this.
Yeah, I was very heavily expectant. I knew that the quality of the work would be there because I listen to whatever I do is whenever I'm in conversations with people and we're trying to build something or create a knowledge, because this is a knowledge product. I see this as a knowledge product. I try to read or listen to what has been produced beforehand, and I was really impressed with the quality of work you do. You do very impeccable work that is very needed and very important. And with that, I was really, really expectant and very enthused. And I'm so glad that it exceeded my expectation. Yeah, so fantastic to be here. It's a privilege that you even considered me worthy to be on Think Big Africa. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much, sir.
Wow. Thank you very much.